If I had known that the scraping sound of a scalpel dragging across a metal tray would be the last thing I'd ever hear clearly, I would have never stepped into that damned forest. I can still hear the groans of that poor man on the table, and the voice of that deranged doctor circles my mind like it's waiting for an answer. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you how it started. I entered the Appalachian woods with the kind of confidence only someone with too little experience and too much optimism can have. A long weekend alone sounded perfect, just hiking, quiet, and a chance to clear my thoughts. The first day went smoothly. The second, not so much. By late afternoon, the trail markers were getting scarce. My phone battery dropped faster than it should have, and when it finally died, it felt less like an inconvenience and more like a warning. Still, I kept going. The forest didn't seem particularly hostile, just dense, repetitive, easy to misread. But eventually, every direction started looking exactly the same. Tall trunks, brush, shadows stretching into more shadows. No panic, not yet. I tried correcting my direction, checked my map, chose a line that should have taken me back toward the trail. Instead, the forest only grew thicker, the ground uneven, the undergrowth tugging at my boots. I wasn't hearing birds anymore, or wind, or anything really. That's when I realized I was properly, genuinely lost. The sun dipped low enough that the light began slipping between the trees in long, weak strands. I needed shelter, fast. The temperature in these woods drops brutally at night, and hiking blind is a great way to break an ankle and die where no one finds you. So when the trees suddenly thinned and I stepped into an open clearing, I felt a wave of relief strong enough to blur my common sense. The villa stood at the center, a massive, 3-story Victorian building, easily late 1800s in design, with a collapsed balcony rail, shipped pillars, and vines strangling its entire left side. The windows were dark, many cracked or missing glass entirely. Roof tiles curled and crumbled. The place looked like no one had touched it in decades. What struck me wasn't how eerie it looked. What struck me was that something so large could exist this deep in the forest without showing up on any map I had seen. I approached the porch carefully. The boards flexed under my weight but held. Inside, the air smelled of dry rot, old plaster, and dust thick enough to taste. My flashlight beam swept across faded wallpaper, a toppled dresser, and a fallen chandelier. The interior looked like it had surrendered to time without a fight. But it was shelter, solid, covered, and out of the wind. That was all I cared about. I walked through the foyer, checking for hazards. Loose floorboards, exposed nails, animal nests. Nothing that would make the place unusable, just abandonment. Heavy, quiet abandonment. I found a fainting couch near the wall, its upholstery shredded, but the frame still intact. It was better than sleeping on the forest floor with the temperature dropping. I cleared off as much debris as I could, laid my backpack nearby, and sat down. The exhaustion hit me all at once, the kind that comes not from physical strain, but from the moment your brain realizes you're out of options. The villa felt cold, but not dangerously so. The walls kept the wind out. The roof was intact enough above this room. I told myself I'd rest for a few hours, wake before sunrise, and head east toward the light. Simple plan, practical. I lay back, stretched out, and exhaled. This wasn't where I planned to sleep tonight, but it was the only choice I had left. And as my eyes finally grew heavy, I had no idea that when I opened them again, nothing about this place would look the same. I woke up warmer than I had any right to be. For a moment, I just lay there, blinking at the ceiling, trying to remember why everything felt different. The last thing I recalled was collapsing onto a dusty, half-broken couch in an abandoned villa, too exhausted to care about anything except sleep. But the ceiling above me wasn't cracked. It wasn't stained, it was clean. I sat up fast. The room I was in looked like the same one, same size, same layout, but restored, as if someone had spent months bringing it back to life. The wallpaper was intact. The furniture stood straight, and a lamp on a table beside me glowed with a steady, warm flame. I rubbed my face, trying to piece together any explanation that didn't involve losing my grip on reality. Maybe I had wandered half asleep to another part of the house. Maybe someone had restored the place. Maybe I wasn't alone. I stood and stepped into the hallway. It was the same story there. The floors were polished, the walls clean, everything arranged with the kind of careful order people usually reserve for places they actively live in. About halfway down the corridor, a door caught my eye. Heavy, reinforced. A padlock hung from a metal bracket, solid and old. A basement door, most likely. I tested the lock out of habit, completely sealed. I didn't waste time on it. Not when I had far larger questions than whatever might be behind a locked cellar. I climbed the stairs. If there was anyone here, or anyone who had been here recently, I'd find traces upstairs. Tools, supplies, documents. Something that explained why a house that looked like it was collapsing last night now looked maintained. At the end of the second-floor hallway, I found a study. A doctor's study, the kind you see in old photographs. Shelves lined with medical books, notebooks, diagrams, small instruments arranged neatly on cloth, a working desk. Everything sorted in a way that suggested habit and routine, not decoration. I stepped closer, scanning the papers on the desk. One open notebook contained lists, names, dozens of them. Beside each name were short notes, brief technical terms I didn't fully understand. Eligible, not suitable, donor, rejected. It struck me as odd, but not alarming. Doctors kept all kinds of records. Maybe this had been a place for examinations, screenings, early medical work. I didn't dwell on it. I was too focused on the bigger question of who lived here now, if anyone. As I looked around the study, something else caught my attention. A drawer built into the underside of the desk. Inside lay a single brass key, large, heavy, hand-cut teeth. The moment I picked it up, I recognized the shape. The arch, the length, the old-fashioned design. It was almost identical to the lock on the cellar door downstairs. A simple thought crossed my mind. If the doctor who lived here kept something locked away, it was probably valuable. Money, documents, medicine, antiques, anything was possible. And if there were answers about the state of this house, the key might lead to them. I pocketed it and hurried back downstairs. The hallway felt even quieter now, though I told myself that was just the old architecture absorbing sound. I stopped in front of the cellar door, fit the key into the padlock, and felt it turn smoothly. The lock opened. A cold draft rose from the stairwell below. Not dramatic, just the natural chill of an unheated lower level. Still, the air carried a sharp metallic smell I recognized immediately from hospital rooms and lying hikes gone wrong. Blood. I gripped the handrail and stepped downward. Whatever the doctor had kept secured in this cellar, I was about to find out. I took the oil lamp from the wall, lifted it by the handle, and headed down the staircase into the cellar. The air grew colder with every step, and the weak flame barely pushed back the dark. At the bottom, the light finally revealed the room. A long wooden table stood in the center. Across it, crimson stains had soaked into the wood. Beside it lay trays of scalpels, clamps, and a bone saw. Clean, organized, disturbingly ready. On a nearby shelf, bones of different sizes were stacked in a careless pile. My stomach tightened, but I forced myself deeper, raising the lamp toward a narrow doorway in the back. What lay beyond made my breath stop. Cages, 4 of them, iron-barred and bolted into the stone floor. 3 were empty. 1 held a man. He was slumped in the corner, barely conscious, breathing in thin, uneven pulls. Sweat clung to his hair, and his arms and legs were marked with wounds that didn't need explanation. I rushed to the bars. "Hey, can you hear me?" His eyelids twitched. He tried to lift his head, managed only a faint groan, and collapsed again. I reached for the lock. Something slammed into the back of my skull. The lamp fell from my hand. The world slipped. Darkness swallowed everything. I woke on metal. Bars surrounded me, tight, too close. My heart pounded as I pushed myself upright and finally saw the room clearly, lit now by a single lamp placed on the operating table. And on that table lay the man from the cage. strapped down with leather belts, trembling with shallow breaths. A figure stepped into the light. A gray-haired man, neatly dressed in a vest, shirt, and trousers, clothing from another century, worn and real. He examined the instruments with calm, practiced movements before turning toward me. His gaze sharpened as he studied my jacket, shoes, and the backpack thrown on the floor. "My word," he said slowly. "What sort of attire is this? How did you arrive here? Who brought you?" My voice was thin. "What year is it?" He paused, confused by the question. 1873. Cold spread through my chest. The restored house, the equipment, his clothing, the man on the table. Everything aligned with one horrifying conclusion. Somehow, I wasn't in my own time. The doctor turned back to the tray, selected a scalpel, and spoke with a steady, almost gentle tone. "I believe you may be an ideal donor." A surge of pure panic flooded me. The man on the table whimpered as the doctor leaned closer, the blade catching the lamplight. Then, black. I gasped and shot upright. Dust exploded from the ruined couch beneath me. The villa was rotten again. Broken boards, collapsed plaster, the same decayed silence from the night before. I reached back and touched the lump on my skull. My fingers came away with flakes of dried blood. My breathing turned sharp and uneven. I stepped into the hallway and stopped in front of the cellar door. A massive rusted padlock hung from it, fused with age. And from behind the door came the violent scrape of metal against metal. Then a scream. Not human, not animal, something caught between. The padlock rattled. I stepped back.